I'd booked the entire Apex Lounge, the most exclusive rooftop bar in the city, for my girlfriend Claire Sullivan's 22nd birthday. But now, she was nowhere to be found. I was about to go look for her when lines of glowing red text, like a live stream chat, suddenly scrolled across my vision. This is nuts. The main characters are getting hot and heavy in the utility closet right now. Good thing Ethan Reed, the whipped boyfriend, cranked the heat up so high. Otherwise, Claire would have been all over Leo by now. The champagne flute in my hand stopped halfway to my lips. I followed the text direction, my eyes landing on the utility closet at the far end of the hall. Claire's best friend immediately stepped in my way. "Ethan, sweetie," Claire said, "she has a surprise for you. She wants you to wait for her out on the terrace. She'll be right there." Close one. The bestie is quick on her feet, successfully diverting the doormat. LOL. As soon as Claire heard Ethan was gone, she wrapped her arms around Leo's neck and kissed him again. I can practically hear her muttering, "God, that simp is so clingy." So that was it. Everyone in this room was in on it, playing me for a fool. In that case, I wouldn't be playing their game any longer. I glanced at the freezing sleet swirling outside on the terrace, then back at the closed utility closet door. I turned to a nearby waiter. "Lock every utility closet door from the outside. Immediately. Then, turn the main thermostat up as high as it will go. It's freezing out there. We wouldn't want anyone to catch a cold. Drinks are on me. No one leaves sober tonight." Both the chat in my head and Claire's friend stared, dumbfounded. What? Lock the doors and max out the heat? He's going to cook them alive in there. Chapter 1, her friend's mouth hung open, her face a mask of pure horror, like she'd just swallowed a bug. "Mr. Reed, I don't think that's a good idea. What if someone's in there?" I swirled the champagne in my glass, the bubbles catching the light like chips of ice. "Oh." I gave her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "And who do you think would be in there?" She avoided my gaze, forcing a laugh. I was just saying, for safety. Ha ha. The bestie is panicking. She definitely knows they're in there. Claire is texting her, asking what's going on, saying she heard a lock click. Oh, Mayo, why isn't the simp following the script today? Did he suddenly develop a spine? I ignored her and walked to the center of the lounge, picking up the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming out tonight to celebrate Claire's birthday." The music faded, and every eye in the room turned to me. I saw Claire's parents and her brother, Kevin, schmoozing with some investors, beaming as if they owned the place. Tonight, I had a very special gift planned for Claire. I paused, watching with satisfaction as the Sullivans' eyes lit up with greed. Here it comes. In the original story, Ethan gives Claire the deed to a Manhattan penthouse. She refuses it publicly, saying, "I love you for you, not your money," which makes her look great. Then, behind the scenes, she has him put the deed in her mother's name. Peak manipulative behavior. Makes me sick. Look at her brother's face. He's practically drooling. The smirk on my face widened. However, Claire just told me she wants to play a little game to liven things up. The room went silent, confused by the sudden change of plans. Claire's friend looked like she was about to have a panic attack, frantically trying to catch my eye. I paid her no mind. The game is simple. It's a treasure hunt. I've hidden 10 envelopes around this lounge. Each one contains $10,000 in cash. Finders keepers. But there's one rule. I raised my voice, making sure everyone could hear. To keep things fair, any locked room is off limits. No one is to open a locked door for any reason. Anyone who does will be disqualified. The crowd erupted. 10 envelopes with 10 grand each. That was serious money. The guests, buzzing with excitement, immediately started searching every nook and cranny. Claire's friend stood frozen, her face pale, furiously texting on her phone, no doubt giving a play-by-play to the people trapped inside. Claire's freaking out. She says it's getting hotter in the closet, and she can barely breathe. Leo's telling her not to worry, that Ethan is just playing hard to get and will be there any minute to unlock the door and beg for her forgiveness. Wow, the audacity of that guy. A cold laugh escaped my lips. I walked over to the building's climate control panel. A staff member approached me respectfully. "Mr. Reed, is there anything I can help you with?" "Set the temperature to maximum." "Right away, sir." Without a moment's hesitation, he cranked the digital thermostat to a sweltering 95 degrees. The temperature in the lounge began to climb almost instantly. I shrugged off my suit jacket draped it over my arm, and fixed my gaze on that tightly sealed utility closet door. You want me to beg? Fine. Let's see who breaks first. Chapter 2. The minutes ticked by. Inside the lounge, the guests were laughing and shouting as they hunted for cash, the party in full swing. Outside the closet, Claire's friend paced back and forth like a caged animal. She tried to approach the utility closet several times, but my security detail, posted nearby, subtly blocked her path each time. Haha, she's about to cry. Claire is in there calling her useless in all caps. It has to be over 100 degrees in that closet by now. You could grill a steak in there. Leo started banging on the door, but it's a commercial-grade door. It's basically soundproof. No one can hear a thing. I took a sip of champagne and strolled over to where Claire's family was holding court. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan, Kevin, are you enjoying the party? Mrs. Sullivan's face was a mess of crinkled smiles. Oh yes, Ethan, of course. You've been so thoughtful. Mr. Sullivan put on a serious face and clapped my shoulder. Ethan, our Claire is a lucky girl to have found you. Kevin, Claire's brother, sidled up to me, his voice oozing with false charm. Dude, you're the best. Seriously. So, what was that special gift you were talking about? But it's worth way more than all this cash combined, right? A whole family of vampires, and they were surprisingly good actors. I just smiled and said nothing. This family is disgusting. They have no idea their precious daughter and sister is sweating it out with another man. In the book, after Ethan's family goes bankrupt, these people turn on him in a second. They throw him out and call him a worthless loser. I can't wait for the awakened Ethan to crush them. Just then, a waiter hurried over, a strange look on his face. Mr. Reed, the specialty sauna service you ordered is ready. Shall we begin? It was an impromptu order I'd placed a few minutes ago. I raised my voice deliberately. Oh, already? Excellent. Let's get it started. A team of waiters appeared, wheeling several industrial-grade humidifiers over to the utility closet door. They switched them on, aiming the nozzles directly at the crack beneath the door. Thick, white steam began to pour into the sealed space. What is that? Mrs. Sullivan asked, confused. I smiled benignly. It's a new service the lounge is offering. A finished steam bath. I figured everyone was getting a little sweaty from the game, so I had the hotel set this up to help everyone detox. Detox? My ass. He's trying to steam them like dumplings. It was already a dry heat, and now he's adding humidity? That's literally a steam room. A steam room they can't escape. Ethan Reed is a legend. This is psychological warfare. Claire's friend couldn't take it anymore. No, stop it, she shrieked. She lunged for the machines, trying to shut them off, but my security guards caught her, holding her firmly. Mr. Reed, there are people in there. Claire is in there, she finally screamed. The noise in the lounge died instantly. Every single person turned to stare at the utility closet door, now billowing with white steam. The smiles on the Sullivans' faces froze and shattered. I raised an eyebrow in mock surprise. Oh, Claire's in there? What's she doing in utility closet by herself? Playing hide and seek. She's not alone, her friend sobbed. Leo Vance is in there with her. Leo Vance. As soon as she said the name, the faces of the few people who knew him twisted into expressions of shock and disgust. Mr. Sullivan's face turned a deep, furious red. That's ridiculous, he roared. Claire would never be with that deadbeat. I sighed, putting on my best heartbroken expression. Well, in that case, to clear Claire's good name, I suppose we'd better open the door and see for ourselves. I gave my head of security a nod. He produced a key and, as the entire room held its breath, slowly unlocked the door. Chapter 3. The second the door opened, a wave of heat, thick with the stench of sweat and cheap cologne, washed over us. Two figures stumbled out, collapsing onto the floor in a tangled heap. It was Claire Sullivan and Leo Vance. Their clothes were a mess, their hair plastered to their faces with sweat, looking like they'd just been pulled from a river. Claire was wearing the designer gown I'd bought her. Now, the hem was ripped, and the fabric clung to her body, outlining every curve. Leo looked even worse. His shirt was unbuttoned, revealing a chest covered in angry red scratches. The room was dead silent. Then the flashes started. Dozens of phone cameras lit up, capturing the scandal of the year. Claire! Mrs. Sullivan let out a piercing scream and nearly fainted. Mr. Sullivan was shaking with rage, pointing a trembling finger at his daughter, unable to form a single word. Claire's mind, still foggy from the heat and lack of oxygen, slowly processed the scene. She looked from the crowd to the cameras, and finally, her eyes landed on me. She scrambled toward me like I was a life raft. "Ethan, let me explain. It's not what it looks like. It was Leo. He assaulted me. And there it is. The classic blame game. Wow, that's some Oscar-worthy acting right there." Leo's face is priceless. He looks completely blindsided, like, "Are you f***ing kidding me?" Leo was, in fact, completely blindsided. He stared at Claire in disbelief, his lips trembling. "Claire, what are you saying?" She didn't even look at him. She just clung to my leg, her face streaked with tears. "Ethan, you have to believe me. I only love you. Nothing happened with him. He tricked me into going in there. He tried to force himself on me. I was fighting him off the whole time. Her performance was flawless, full of raw, convincing emotion. If it weren't for the live stream chat in my head, I might have actually believed her." I looked down at her, my expression utterly devoid of warmth. "Is that so?" I gently shook her hand off my leg and walked over to Leo. He flinched, intimidated by my presence. "Well," I asked him, "is she telling the truth?" Leo's face flushed. He stood his ground. "No, she asked me to meet her. She told me she was sick of you, that you were nothing but a brainless wallet." "You're lying," Claire shrieked, cutting him off. "Ethan, don't listen to him. He's just a social climbing loser trying to drive a wedge between us. A classic case of thieves falling out. This is great. This Leo guy is an idiot. Still trying to act tough at a time like this. Look at the daggers Claire is shooting at him. If looks could kill." I watched the pathetic soap opera unfold and found it all absurdly funny. This was the woman I had loved for 3 years, the woman I had treated like a queen. These were the hero and heroine who, according to the script, were destined to ruin me. A small chuckle escaped my lips. In the silent lounge, it sounded deafeningly loud. Claire's crying stopped. She looked up at me, a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Ethan, what are you laughing at?" I slowly crouched down, grabbing her chin and forcing her to meet my gaze. "I'm laughing at you, because even now, you're still treating me like I'm an idiot." I pulled out my phone, found a voice memo, and turned the volume all the way up. It was the recording of her friend's panic screams from just a few minutes earlier. "No, stop it. Mr. Reed, there are people in there. Claire is in there. She's not alone. Leo Vance is in there with her." The crystal-clear audio echoed through the lounge. The color drained from Claire's face, leaving it a ghostly white. "Chapter for you recorded that." Claire's voice was a ragged whisper. I let go of her chin and stood up, looking down at her like she was something I'd scraped off my shoe. "Claire, do you really think the world revolves around you? That everyone is just a pawn in your little game?" I turned to the assembled guests, my voice calm, but carrying to every corner of the room. "Everyone, my apologies for this embarrassing spectacle. I, Ethan Reed, am announcing here and now that as of this moment, my relationship with Miss Claire Sullivan is officially over." The announcement sent a shockwave through the room. Mrs. Sullivan lunged at me, screaming, "No, Ethan, you can't do this. You and Claire are engaged." I stepped aside, and my security team intercepted her. "Engaged?" I scoffed. "My lawyers will be handling that piece of paper." I looked at the ashen-faced Sullivans, my voice dropping to a cold, precise tone. "And a friendly reminder, Mr. Sullivan, that tech startup your son Kevin is the CEO of Sullivan Innovations, the legal owner of that company. I believe that's still my name on the paperwork. My forensic accountants will be there tomorrow to liquidate all assets. Please have everything ready for the handover." Kevin Sullivan crumpled to the floor. I had bankrolled that entire company just to please Claire, setting up her useless brother in a cushy job. "And Mrs. Sullivan," I said, turning to the terrified woman, "the penthouse overlooking the Hudson you're currently living in, as well as all the supplementary credit cards in your name, will be frozen, effective immediately." As for Ms. Claire Sullivan herself, I walked over to her, looking down at the face I had once adored. "The sports car, the apartment, every last designer bag and piece of jewelry I ever bought you. I will have people there to collect it all within 24 hours. To put it simply, everything I ever gave your family, I am taking back. Every last cent. You walk away with nothing." My voice was quiet, but each word landed like a sledgehammer blow on the Sullivan family. Damn, that was awesome. So freaking cool. The ultimate cut-them-off power move. This is how a billionaire acts. Watching the Sullivans go from the top of the world to rock bottom in 60 seconds is giving me life. Ruthless, intelligent, decisive. This is the kind of protagonist I'm here for. Claire completely fell apart, grabbing my leg and sobbing hysterically. No, Ethan, I am sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. I'll never do it again. I swear. I kicked her hand away in disgust. A chance? I gave you 1,000 chances, and you threw every single one of them away. Without another glance, I turned and walked out of the lounge, leaving behind a cacophony of desperate sobs, furious curses, and the pitying, scornful, or secretly thrilled gazes of the city's elite. The absurd, 3-year-long dream was finally over. I was awake. Chapter 5. Back in my penthouse, I collapsed onto the sofa. The glowing red text was still scrolling frantically across my vision. So satisfying. What incredible opening. I'm hooked on this story. A simp awakens. He's about to go scorched earth on everyone. I wonder what's happening with Claire and Leo right now. They're probably getting swarmed by paparazzi. Plot spoiler alert. According to the original novel, Leo, using his knowledge from his past life, will steal an unreleased venture capital portfolio from Ethan's computer. He'll use it to snipe a key investment Ethan was targeting, make his first fortune, and begin his meteoric rise. Past life? I frowned. So, Leo Vance was a regressor. Someone living their life a second time. That explained how a broke nobody always seemed to know exactly where the next big thing was, and why he harbored such an intense, personal animosity toward me. In his original timeline, I was the villain who had stolen his woman. How pathetic. I opened my laptop and, in a heavily encrypted folder, found the so-called venture capital portfolio. It was my strategic 5-year plan for the company, filled with detailed analyses of future market trends and a list of several incredibly promising startups. If Leo got his hands on this, with his foreknowledge, he really could become a major player. This is it. Leo will use Claire to try and get a copy of this portfolio. In the book, Ethan was so blinded by love that his computer password was Claire's birthday. Basically handed it to them on a silver platter. But now that Ethan is wise to them, will Leo still succeed? I looked at the scrolling text on my screen and smiled coldly. Succeed? Of course he'll succeed. Otherwise, how is this game of cat and mouse supposed to be any fun? I didn't change the core of the plan. I just swapped out one of the most promising startups with a carefully prepared trap. On the surface, it was a tech company with limitless potential. In reality, it was a shell corporation, drowning in debt and already gutted from the inside. If he invested, I would personally guarantee he'd lose everything. With that done, I closed the laptop and poured myself a glass of whiskey. The ice cubes clinked a sharp, clean sound. Outside my window, the city lights glittered like a river of fallen stars. Now, Claire, the game was just getting started. I wasn't just going to take back what was mine. I was going to make them choke on everything they had ever taken from me. Chapter 6. The next morning, my legal and asset recovery teams were deployed. They worked with terrifying efficiency. By noon, my chief of staff, Mr. Peterson, was reporting the results. Kevin Sullivan's company was seized, its assets frozen. He was also under investigation for embezzlement. Mrs. Sullivan's penthouse and bank accounts were repossessed. Overnight, she went from a society wife to a penniless woman on the street. Claire's fate was the most dramatic. When she was evicted from her apartment, she was still wearing last night's ruined designer gown. Everything to her name had been taken. She was, quite literally, left with nothing but the clothes on her back. So satisfying. This is what betrayal gets you. The Sullivans must be losing their minds. Probably sitting in a gutter somewhere, cursing Ethan's name. Heads up. Claire, refusing to give up, is about to bring her mom to Ethan's office building to put on a pity party performance. Sure enough, just as I was finishing a meeting that afternoon, my receptionist called. 2 women, a Mrs. and Ms. Sullivan, were in the lobby demanding to see me. From my office's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Claire and her mother arguing near the building's entrance. One was sobbing, the other was shouting. They looked like a pair of stray dogs. I picked up the intercom. Peterson, send them up. Conference room 3. Right away, Mr. Reed. Huh? Why is Ethan seeing them? Is he getting soft? No way. Impossible. The hero can't go back. That would ruin the whole story. Relax. I bet Ethan has a plan. He's not the same impulsive guy anymore. The chat was more worked up than I was. Of course, I wasn't getting soft. I was just curious to see what new tricks they had up their sleeves. And besides, it was time to add a little fuel to my fire. Soon, Claire and her mother were escorted in. They'd changed their clothes, but they couldn't hide the haggard, desperate look about them. The moment she entered the room, Mrs. Sullivan dropped to her knees. Ethan, we were wrong. The Sullivans wronged you. Please, I'm begging you, have mercy on us. Give us a chance to survive. She started banging her head on the marble floor over and over until her forehead was red and raw. Claire knelt beside her, weeping. Ethan, it's all my fault. Punish me, just me. My parents are innocent. My brother is innocent. Wow, this guilt trip is something else. She almost sounds convincing. If I didn't know what they were really like, I'd almost feel sorry for them. Don't fall for it, Ethan. I sat on the sofa, watching their performance without a flicker of emotion. When it seemed they had run out of tears, I finally spoke. Are you done? The mother and daughter froze. If you're done, then get out. My voice was ice. Mrs. Sullivan's sobs caught at her throat. She looked at me in disbelief. You're telling us to get out? What else? I retorted. Did you think I was going to invite you to stay for dinner? Claire's face flushed with shame and anger. She had swallowed her pride, debased herself, and this was the humiliation she received in return. She grit her teeth. Ethan, don't take it too far. Too far. I laughed. Compared to everything I gave your family, this little bit of humiliation is nothing. I stood up and walked over to them, towering over their kneeling forms. The only reason I let you up here today was to tell you one thing. Stay out of my life. Never show your faces to me again. Because next time, what you'll be facing is a hell of a lot worse than just being cut off. The look in my eyes made them both shudder. Just then, my phone rang. I answered it, deliberately putting it on speaker. Hey, Husu. Yes, I'm very interested in the auction for that South District development plot. Great, I'll see you there. After hanging up, I accidentally shifted my open laptop on the conference table, turning the screen so it was perfectly visible from where they were kneeling. On the screen was the modified venture capital portfolio. Then, making an excuse about using the restroom, I left the room. I get it. Ethan's doing this on purpose. He mentioned the South District plot and left the laptop there intentionally, just to bait Claire. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This is a masterclass sting operation. I watched from the security feed in the hallway. Claire did not disappoint. The second I was gone, she scrambled to the table, pulled a flash drive from her purse, and frantically copied the portfolio. Once she had it, she grabbed her mother and practically sprinted out of my building. Watching their retreating figures, the smile on my face turned colder than ice. The fish had taken a bait. Chapter 7, the auction for the South District development plot, was the biggest real estate event of the year. The parcel of land, dubbed the Gateway, was prime real estate, and every major developer in the city was in attendance. I sat in the front row, looking perfectly relaxed. Peterson leaned in and whispered, Mr. Reed, Leo Vance, and Claire Sullivan are here. Back row. I glanced over my shoulder and saw the two of them. Leo was wearing a sharp new suit, his hair slicked back. He was trying his best to look the part. Claire, wearing heavy makeup, was clinging to his arm, the picture of a devoted girlfriend. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Did our villains find a new sugar daddy? Chat update. Leo sold the fake portfolio to a nouveau riche blowhard named Russo for $50 million in seed money. This Russo guy is a moron. Leo fed him a few lines about future trends, and he bought it hook, line, and sinker. Thinks Leo is some kind of business prodigy. They're here today to outbid Ethan for the Gateway plot. They think it's going to be the first major victory in their comeback story. Outbid me? Adorable. The auction began. The opening bid, $100 million. The city's real estate titans went back and forth, and the price climbed steadily. I never raised my paddle. By the time the price hit $200 million, only 3 bidders remained. One of them was Mr. Russo, with Leo at his side. Every time Russo raised his paddle, he would shoot a smug, triumphant look in my direction. I pretended not to notice. $250 million, a veteran developer called out. 260. Russo shot back, not missing a beat. The bidding stalled. And then, finally, I slowly raised my paddle. 300 million. My calm, even voice sent a ripple of shock through the room. Jumping the bid by 40 million in one go. It was a pure power move. The color drained from Russo's face. Beside him, Leo Vance stared daggers at me, his eyes burning with jealousy and rage. Here we go. The main event. Ethan finally makes his move. When alpha. Leo looks like he's about to pop a blood vessel. You must think Ethan is doing this just to screw with him. He is, you idiot. That's the whole point. The veteran developer shook his head and bowed out. Now it was just me against them. Russo looked to Leo, silently asking for guidance. Leo clenched his jaw and gave a sharp nod. 310 million. Russo barked, his voice tight. I smiled and raised my paddle again. 400 million. Another bombshell. Russo shot to his feet, pointing a trembling finger at me. Are you insane? That land isn't worth half that. The auctioneer gave him a warning look. I didn't even bother to look at him. Whether I can afford it is my business. Whether you can match it is yours. The ultimate flex, casually dropping a fortune without breaking a sweat. God, that was so cool. The confidence of old money. Russo looks like he's about to have a stroke, haha. Leo's face was a twisted mask of fury. A vein pulsed in his forehead. He knew that if they didn't win this land today, his credibility with Russo would be shot. He leaned over and whispered something in Russo's ear. Russo's expression shifted, and finally, with a look of grim determination, he shakily raised his paddle. 410 million. It was clear that was his absolute limit. Every eye in the room was now on me, waiting to see if I would continue. I met their gazes, and then, very slowly, I lowered my paddle. I turned to Russo and Leo, a knowing smile playing on my lips. Congratulations, gentlemen. The land is yours. Leo and Russo just stared, stunned. They never imagined I would just stop. Whoa, he's not bidding. I get it. Ethan never wanted the land. He was just driving up the price, setting a trap for Leo. Spending 400 million of someone else's money on a single plot of land. This is going to be good. Leo actually thinks he won. Look at that smug expression. How tragic. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a crack, sealing the deal. Leo stood up, basking in the complex stares of the crowd, mistaking their shock for admiration. He shot me a look that screamed, I win, Ethan. You lose. I just shook my head, not bothering to look at him again. Idiot. I'd already had that plot surveyed weeks ago. It was sitting on a massive deposit of buried industrial waste. The cleanup costs alone would be astronomical. Whoever bought, it was buying a one-way ticket to bankruptcy. Enjoy your victory, Leo. Enjoy your prize, Claire. I can't wait to watch you fall from the sky. Chapter 8. 3 days after the auction, a headline rocked the city's financial world. Gateway plot a toxic wasteland. Soil tests reveal massive heavy metal contamination. The news caused an immediate panic. The stock of Russo's company, Macrocorp, which had just spent $410 million on the land, plummeted, hitting zero before the market even closed. Banks froze their lines of credit. Investors pulled out. Overnight, Macrocorp's cash flow dried up completely. Here it is. The follow-up. So good. 400 million down the drain. Russo must be suicidal. Leo, the business prodigy, is now Leo, the corporate kiss of death. This is hilarious. I wonder how Russo is going to deal with him. I sat in my office, sipping my coffee, as Peterson handed me the morning report. It detailed, in grim succession, the fates of Leo and Claire. When Russo found out the truth, he went ballistic, destroying his office and sending his men to grab Leo. They broke one of his legs and forced him to sign an IOU for the full 50 million, plus exorbitant interest. They beat him half to death and dumped him in an alley like a bag of trash. Claire, seeing which way the wind was blowing, tried to make a run for it, but was caught by Russo's men. Seeing as she was attractive, Russo decided not to have her beaten. Instead, he invited her to be a long-term guest at his private villa. Damn, this is getting intense. Claire got what she deserved. Tried to use men to climb the social ladder, and ended up as a rich guy's plaything. Leo got off easy, all things considered. A broken leg and 50 million in debt. His life is over. This is what happens when you cross Ethan Reed. I put down the report, feeling nothing. This was all exactly as I had foreseen. To deal with people like them, I didn't even have to get my hands dirty. All I had to do was give them a little push, and they would march right off a cliff on their own. Just then, Peterson handed me a tablet. "Mr. Reed, you want to see this?" It was a video. In it, Claire's mother and brother, Kevin, were on their knees in front of the MacroCorp building, wailing. They weren't begging for Claire's release. They were demanding their money back from Russo. Apparently, Claire had boasted to them about Leo's genius, convincing them to invest what little money they had left with him. Now that it was all gone, they were demanding restitution. In the video, Mrs. Sullivan was throwing herself on the ground, and Kevin was screaming threats. It was a pathetic, ugly scene, and a crowd had gathered to watch. Ha ha, the whole family is a train wreck. Poetic justice. They absolutely deserve this. I would pay to see the look on Leo's face right now, getting hounded for money by his would-be mother-in-law. I watched the two familiar figures on the screen, and my expression hardened. They just never quit. I picked up the phone and called my head of legal. "Alan, it's Ethan. The evidence you gathered on Kevin Sullivan's embezzlement. Is it solid?" "Ironclad, Mr. Reed. We can file the charges at any time." "Good." I looked out the window. "File them now. It's time he had a quiet place to think about his actions. Anyone who plots against me, anyone who wrongs me, I will make sure they pay. No one gets a pass." Chapter 9. The news of Kevin's arrest spread quickly. When Mrs. Sullivan got the call, she fainted on the spot. When she came to, she was faced with a mountain of legal bills and no way to pay them. She finally snapped completely, showing up in my office building and screaming like a madwoman, calling me a backstabber, heartless monster. I didn't even bother to go down. I just had security escort her off the premises. So satisfying. The whole family is finally getting what they deserve. The only one left is Leo. I wonder what happened to him. Spoiler, don't worry. Leo has one last ace up his sleeve. In the book, he's actually the illegitimate son of the Blackwood family from New York. After this failure, with nowhere left to turn, he goes to them to claim his birthright. The Blackwoods? The international shipping magnates? They're even bigger than the Reeds. You gotta be kidding me. That's a massive plot twist. The illegitimate son of the Blackwood family? Now that was a piece of information I hadn't expected. I had Peterson run a background check. The results came back quickly. Leo's mother had, in fact, worked as a secretary for Warren Blackwood, the family patriarch, many years ago. The timeline matched up. If Leo really was a Blackwood, then things were about to get very, very interesting. The Blackwoods were an old money family, obsessed with their reputation and public image. Warren Blackwood himself valued his good name above all else. The sudden appearance of a disgraced, debt-ridden, illegitimate son, especially at a time like this, the fallout would be spectacular. I know that look on Ethan's face. He's planning something huge. My guess? He's going to crash the family reunion and give Leo a very special welcome gift. A public execution is coming. I can't wait. I was, in fact, preparing a gift. I had my team compile a complete dossier of Leo's greatest hits, from cheating on exams in high school to petty theft in college, right up to the full, unvarnished truth of the MacroCorp fraud. Then, as a special bonus, I had a private lab run a rush DNA comparison between him and his estranged father. Once I had everything, I sent an anonymous email to the Blackwood family office. The email contained a single attachment, a photo of Leo's mother in her youth. I knew that when Warren Blackwood saw that photo, he would understand exactly what was coming. And then, I booked a flight to New York. I wasn't about to miss the final act of this drama. I wanted to see for myself what happens when a so-called protagonist's plot armor comes up against the cold, hard reality of absolute power and wealth. Chapter 10. New York City. The Blackwood family estate. The 30th anniversary gala for the Blackwood Corporation was in full swing. The estate was overflowing with the city's most powerful and influential people. As the CEO of the Reed Corporation, I was of course on the guest list. I moved through the crowd, champagne in hand, my eyes scanning for the man of the hour. The patriarch himself, Warren Blackwood. He was in his 60s, but still carried himself with an imposing, formidable aura. It's happening. The final showdown. Leo's at the gate, arguing with security. He's making a huge scene. And Claire is with him. She somehow got away from Russo and is now clinging to Leo, hoping to marry into the Blackwood family. Wow, those two are like a cockroach couple. They just won't die. I didn't approach him right away. I was waiting for the perfect moment, the moment that would ensure the maximum possible impact. Soon, a commotion erupted near the ballroom entrance. A young man on crutches, his leg in a cast, and a woman in a cheap, flashy dress were being restrained by security, but they were still screaming at the top of their lungs. "Get your hands off me. Do you have any idea who I am? My name is Leo Vance. I'm Warren Blackwood's son. Dad, it's me, your son." It was, of course, Leo and Claire. The entire ballroom fell silent. All eyes turned to the spectacle at the door. The string quartet stopped playing. A wave of whispers swept through the room. Warren Blackwood's face turned to stone. His wife, standing beside him, was shaking with fury. "Nonsense! Who is this lunatic? Get him out of here!" Warren roared. "I'm not a lunatic." Leo struggled, pulling a faded photograph from his jacket. "This is my mother. Her name was Sarah. 23 years ago, she was your secretary. Dad, just look." When Warren Blackwood saw the photograph, his eyes widened in shock. It was clear he remembered. Holy SHD, it really is his son. Warren Blackwood looks like he's about to have a heart attack. Mrs. Blackwood looks like she's about to commit a murder. Her eyes are shooting lasers at her husband. Secret love children, public meltdowns, live action, high society drama. This is amazing. At the very peak of the tension, I calmly walked onto the stage. I picked up the microphone and offered the stunned crowd a small smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment." My presence on stage confused everyone. Warren Blackwood scowled at me. "Reed, what do you think you're doing?" I ignored him, speaking into the microphone in a calm, measured voice. "Before Mr. Blackwood attends to his family matter, I'd like to tell you all a story. It's a story about a man who takes in a stray dog, only to have it bite the hand that feeds." I then proceeded to recount the entire saga of Leo Vance. How he had used Claire to get close to me, how he had leashed off my wealth while plotting my downfall behind my back, and how his grand business scheme ended in fraud, bankruptcy, and ruin. I never mentioned him by name, but no one in that room was a fool. Every eye in the hall drifted toward the pathetic, crippled figure at the entrance. The blood drained from Leo's face. Claire looked like she wanted the earth to open up and swallow her whole. When my story was finished, I turned to Warren Blackwood, my smile laced with poison. "Mr. Blackwood, tell me, if a man like that suddenly showed up on your doorstep, claiming to be your long-lost son, would you believe him?" And with that, I pressed a button on the remote in my hand. The massive screen behind me, which had been displaying the Blackwood corporate logo, flickered to life. It displayed a single document, a brand new, officially notarized paternity test report. The results were there in black and white for all to see. Leo Vance and Warren Blackwood. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The ballroom was utterly silent. Then, the screen changed. It began playing a highlight reel, a video of Leo, leg broken, begging for mercy, a video of Claire at Russo's villa, scantily clad and fawning over him, a video of Mrs. Sullivan screaming obscenities outside my office building. One damning scene after another, all in high definition. It was a public execution. Warren Blackwood stared at the screen, swayed on his feet, and nearly collapsed. His face was ashen. His entire life's work, his precious reputation, the legacy he had spent decades building. In a matter of minutes, I had torn it to shreds and set it on fire for the entire world to see. I put down the microphone, walked up to him, and handed him a folder. "Mr. Blackwood, I believe you'll find this as my final gift to you. It's a letter of intent to acquire a controlling interest in the Blackwood Corporation. Take your time. I'm in no rush." Chapter 11. Warren Blackwood didn't even look at the folder. His eyes, shot through with broken blood vessels, were locked on me. He looked like he wanted to tear me apart with his bare hands. "Reed, you ruthless bastard," he spat, the words torn from his throat. I just smiled. Takes one to know one. Compared to the cutthroat tactics your family has used to build its empire, this was just a friendly little negotiation. I turned my back on him and walked off the stage. Behind me, the scene descended into utter chaos. Mrs. Blackwood was screaming, physically attacking her husband, cursing him and his illegitimate son. Guests were scrambling to pull out their phones, recording the meltdown of one of the city's most powerful families. Security guards rushed in, but their attempts to restore order only added to the pandemonium. Leo and Claire, meanwhile, were frozen in place, paralyzed by the sheer scale of the disaster. Leo couldn't believe it. His final gambit, his one last hope, had been turned into a weapon and used to publicly crucify him. He hadn't just failed to gain the Blackwood's protection. He had become the laughingstock of New York, an eternal stain on the family's name. Claire was a picture of pure despair. She knew, in that moment, that her dreams of a life of luxury were not just dead, but buried. She knew she was finished. Warren Blackwood, a man who would rather die than be publicly humiliated, would never, ever forgive the two people responsible for his downfall. And sure enough, after a moment of shock, a sliver of his cold, calculating demeanor returned. He pointed a trembling finger at Leo and, with all the strength he had left, roared, "Get him out of my sight. I, Warren Blackwood, have no such son. From this day forward, if anyone so much as utters his name in my presence, they will be an enemy of the Blackwood family." Security guards descended on Leo like a pack of wolves. He let out a final, desperate howl of protest before being mercilessly dragged out and thrown into the night. Claire screamed and tried to run, but was caught by two guards. Her fate would be no kinder. A grand anniversary celebration had ended in a spectacular, career-ending scandal. After this, the Blackwood Corporation's reputation was in tatters. Their stock would be in free fall by morning. Combined with the corporate assault I had planned, their fate was sealed. Checkmate. That was epic. That's a true takedown. Leo's plot armor was useless against Ethan's raw power and strategic genius. Satisfying from beginning to end. Not a single moment of frustration. This is the kind of story I live for. I wonder what their final fates will be. I walked out of the Blackwood estate and stepped into the town car that was waiting for me. The New York night air was cold, but I felt nothing but a calm, quiet peace. What happened to them next was of no concern to me. From this day forward, their lives would no longer intersect with mine. They were nothing more than two minor, insignificant villains in the story of my life. A story I was now writing for myself. Chapter 12. 1 month later, I was on my private yacht, sailing the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean. Peterson handed me a final report. The Blackwood Corporation, crippled by the scandal and a coordinated attack from several investment firms I led, had filed for bankruptcy. The Reed Corporation had acquired their most valuable assets for pennies on the dollar. Warren Blackwood had suffered a major stroke and was in a coma, with little hope of recovery. As for Leo and Claire, the report stated that men sent by the Blackwood family had broken Leo's other leg and dumped him in a third-world country with no money and no passport. He was last seen in a back-alley clinic in some slum, still drowning in debt. Claire's end was even more gruesome. Mrs. Blackwood had reportedly gifted her to a notoriously sadistic business associate. After months of abuse, she suffered a complete psychotic break and was now confined to a psychiatric institution. The Sullivan family, broken and bankrupt, had vanished without a trace. The perfect ending. Every villain got exactly what they deserved. So damn satisfying. My soul feels cleansed. The protagonist was strong, decisive, and never looked back. I love this character. And that's a wrap. The glowing red text in my vision began to fade, the comments becoming fewer and farther between. They were like an audience that had stayed with me through the entire movie, and now that the credits were rolling, they were quietly filing out of the theater. I watched as the very last comment faded into nothing. "Goodbye, Ethan. You don't need us anymore. Go live your own life." I smiled, reached up, and flipped a virtual switch that only I could see. The world went silent. I was no longer the dumb, lovesick side character in some trashy novel. I was just Ethan Reed, a real person with his own thoughts, his own will, and his own future. I leaned back in the lounge chair on the deck, closed my eyes, and let the warm sea breeze wash over me. My new life, it was just beginning.